Welcome everybody, this is Phil back with the Professional Painter and Decorator, and again we're now in the new studio. I hope you can hear me all right. We've got some cracking lighting at the side of me. We've got some natural, we call it natural daylight above me, so we've got no excuses to have you know, that orangey tinge that we used to have when I was working in the back part of my, well, I'll say old garage. The garage is still there. But today, you've probably seen the intro, you've seen the introduction of me painting Doris the Door, and I think you're clearly aware that we are talking about Hanford Green's water-based paint, and it's their Satin 50. Now, I didn't want to bore you with putting two coats on Doris. What I'd got was a green door that was previously painted in, and if I cast my mind back to when I last did it, I've got a feeling it was in something like Ticarilla, Everall Aqua, something on that lines. It was a water-based paint. Now, that had been very, very well sanded down with an electric sander, and I'd got a near perfect base to actually work over, to actually put some of this Hanford Green paint on over the top. Now it was, and you've seen on the video, I did dust it off, and I did use the tack rag. They're just on my little bench down here. They're just there. If you want to purchase anything like that I'm using, please have a look in my Amazon Associates links below. You can buy duster brushes, you can buy tack rags and everything that you'll probably need to do your painting and decorating at home. Or if you're a professional, there's some things in there that you might be interested in purchasing as well. And I'll make it clear now, I just get a small percentage of the sales, whatever you purchase through Amazon. It's not that I'm getting a commission off any of the companies that are putting the stuff on Amazon or anything like that. You probably know how it works. Please read the description. But going back to Doris the Door, right, let's move forward. We're moving on, aren't we? Right, Hanford Green. You've seen in that intro, I've gave you some statistics, specs of what makes this paint really good, quick drying, the usual turnaround times and things like that. Now, a bit of background on that. If you look over my left shoulder, which is on the right hand side of the screen, I do like Hanford Green paints. I've been to the factory, please watch there, and having had a little bit of discussion with Hanford Green about the paints that they've got currently, and I'm going to reach out now and go like that and pick off my shelf that's behind me in my studio, stuff like this. We've got the aqua satin that they do, and if I go really close, the touch guard, and there's also, I'm coming in again, because this studio is quite a nice studio to work in, they also do a scuff guard. So you've got a scuff guard that comes up close against another company that does a scuff X, you know, Benjamin Moore. We've also got a touch guard, which if you don't know about touch guard paint, that is one of the paints that is water-based, that is resistant to, you know, finger grease when you've got tops and newel posts and things like that. They go cheesy with saponification. If you don't know what that is, please Google it. Saponification is the problems with your grease of the fingers and your water-based product, and it goes soft and cheesy. Now, Hanford Green have got paints to overcome that, and I'm going to say to you, a cheesy paint is not what we want as a painter and decorator, hence why cheaper water-based paints do have that problem. But Hanford Green, having had a bit of a discussion with them, I mentioned that their paints just needed to have a little bit more sheen level, and they've been doing a little bit of experimenting, and I've been a bit of a guinea pig to try some of their paints out. Now I'm going to point in the corner there. A good number of weeks ago, months ago, they did supply me with a special mix, and the chemist at Hanford Green, Martin, did a little bit of a special mix, and he said, Phil, try this paint out. It's on that video there, and it was a 50% mix sheen level, right? So going from that, I did say, liked it, gave some feedback, and I said I'd like to try it again, but could you do me a bit of a grey colour anthracite? So if you look there, they've done me a Satin 50 sheen level in an anthracite colour, and I've tried it on Doris the Door. The intro, you saw me put one coat on straight over that green, and then I've gave it a second coat. With this being a quick drying paint, it is turnaround times around about an hour that you could start recoating. I put the second coat on after an hour to see what it's like, And I'm going to be honest, it did pull slightly. I think I need a little bit more airflow in this room. I probably needed a little bit more consistency of the heat and not having a blower heater on. I did find that it was pulling slightly on me, and particularly where I was trying to join up wet edges, the paint was starting to pull slightly. That said, the 2 coats have been done this morning. I'm coming back after about 3 hours, so it's had time to naturally start going off, and I'm going to be giving this a 3rd coat. I won't subject you to actually painting it all the way through. I will start painting and we'll have a bit of a talk, but I will get a coat of paint on that. I will get a heater on, get it drying quickly within that hour, and come back and just see what it's like. So far with the 2 coats over that green, I would say somebody who's probably used a roller and brushed it, you would get that paint covering for 2. I've brushed it top to bottom, as you've clearly seen at the beginning, and I just feel that it just wants an extra coat, and it's also a good experiment for me to see what the paint's like on something that's dried and it's had a chance to dry off for about a couple of hours. The hour was pushing it. I would say the hour was pushing it too soon to actually try and get that 2nd coat on. But I'm going to say to you, if you are doing a change of colour, I would probably advise to get the Hanford Green all-purpose primer, which is just there, and probably get it mixed up to a more suitable colour for the colour that you are actually painting over the top. So I've pushed the boundaries slightly. I was going over a water-based paint system, so I've kept with the top coat over the top. I would advise to you and say, if you were actually painting over paint surfaces that have been previously oil gloss, oil eggshell, a suspect surface, give it a sand down, give it a dust off, and go with the Hanford Green. Can you see it there? All-purpose primer. This all-purpose primer is a grip coat primer. It's got everything in it you need to give a sound base for working on over the top. I've not needed it on this. I'm trying out this Satin 50 more so than the actual paint system that we've got with Hanford Green. But please watch the videos on H&G paints before. I think the paint's really good, and I'd say if you've not tried it yet, please give it a try. Right, I don't want to say I'm waffling, but I am talking to you, trying to explain everything from start to finish. Now, that door there, you can probably see with the lights that I've got in here. I've got the studio light to the side of me. I'll just bring it across here. Look, we are professional with the proper studio light. I'm trying to get you to see that there is a really nice, if I can just get my camera straightened up, a really nice sheen level to that. A lot more pleasing to the eye, shall I say. I quite like more of a sheen level, round about that 50 to 60% when we are talking about satin paints. So previously I would probably say that the paint finish is probably around about the 30% on the stuff that they've had before, and I just said you need to not up the game, but just get something a little bit more with a sheen level. So they've done that. The paint is lovely. It goes on a dream. The opacity is not bad, clearly, when it's a dark grey like this, anthracite, but generally their paint is a proper acrylic paint, and it's not one of these ones that you go, oh, there's no guts to it. They do have a little bit more body to it than some of the other paints on the market. And I know you're probably saying to me, Phil, what sort of price? I think we all narrow it down to about a litre tin. You're always round about a £30-ish for a litre tin. The more you buy, the cheaper you'll be buying it in at as well. And I will say now, if you do ring Hanford Green up and want to try some of their paints out, I believe they are still running a discount if you mention my channel, Phil Beckwith, and that's where you're coming from to actually try their paints out. Yeah, it's probably a company you've never heard of, but I'm trying to, I don't want to say promote, because I'm not sponsored by anybody. I am not an ambassador for anybody. I'm just trying to get paints known to people that they've probably not spotted or seen before, and I am trying them for the first time in effect, so you know what these paints are all like if you do try them. Right, let's get on with this. I've got a kettle. If you don't know what I'm like, Phil Beckwith, the professional painter and decorator, Advanced Craft City and Guilds trained. I've got my full apprenticeship with indentures. I'm going to tell you that when you work out of a kettle, work from one side. Can you see what I'm doing? Working from one side of the kettle. And before anybody shouts at me, this is one of my older kettles I use for studio situations like this. Every so often this will get burnt out and we'll have a fresh kettle to work from. Just let it dry and then you can use it for the next time. This is one of many kettles. Right, working from one side of the kettle, I'm not slapping it about like a young lad on a building site thinking that's how you do it. You don't do that. You work from one side of the kettle and then wipe your brush down on the same side as well. That way you don't get covered in paint. Right, I've done the tuition of how to hold a kettle and brush with it. Yeah, it's all basic stuff. Again, for trying out, if you're not used to this channel, for testing and trying out paints, I try and stick with the same brush, and this is a Nour Heritage brush. Very nice brush. If you're interested in where to get these, please Google it, Nour Heritage. They are available in the UK. They are a Canadian company, but the main place to buy it is Paint Monster. So please do a bit of a Google search, Paint Monster, and I will do a link in the description below to Scott up at Paint Monster, who sells all these brushes. Right, we're going in. I don't want to say going in for the kill. Starting at the top, you do your mouldings, you do your panel, centre, knock off any fatty edges, work your way around, and then come with your, I'll call it the top mullion rail there, and I bring it down top to bottom, bringing each section at a time. You'll see what I'm doing, and you've seen probably on videos before. But going over this, I'm not needing to nib it down. It is still a very nice surface. I don't need to get a pad over it. I just want to see what this goes on like for its third coat. I did mention that it was pulling slightly on me because it was still a little bit tacky after that hour. And you know what? So far that is going on so much better because I've left it to dry a little bit more. I'm trying to get you to see what I'm doing. You apply your paint with a crow's nest fashion, get it on all over the surface, lay it off top to bottom on these panels, tips of the bristles, then just go round the moulding as well. Wipe your brush down again. With the heel of the brush, just knock off that fatty edge, so that's not drying off on you too quickly, and by the time you come to that, that will have dried enough that you can go over it and not create any flashing marks. Now that top panel there, you can see there's a nice shine to it, sheen. That will dry off and dull off to the same as what everything else is, but so far that's gone on a lot better. Let's do a little bit more and then we'll see what it's like. This is where we're going to do the fast forwarding. Okie dokie, we've just fast forwarded all that so you can see the idea of how you, the concept of actually painting the door. Now, I'm going to say again, I'm not sponsored by anybody. This is an experimental paint. Hanford Green have reached out to me and said, do you want to try this paint that we've made up? I said earlier in the section before, I've done a video in that corner which was a white paint, and I asked if you could do me a darker colour. Now, whether a darker colour and the pigments that go into it make this paint slightly different, or whether Martin at Hanford Green's done a little bit of a different tweak on it, I do find that when you are doing your rails and coming down and blending back into each other, it slightly pulls because the paint, with it being water-based, is drying off on you a little bit too quick. So as a negative, so criticism being objective, I would say any chance that that paint could have a little bit more flow and workability to it to keep an open edge going. Because when you are actually brushing a door and you're doing a panel in sections, then you're coming up to your mullion rails, your top rails, and then bringing your stiles down. It's these areas here that you are leaving open to blend into, that you want the paint to still have that open time that you can blend the paint in, and then as it dries off, it doesn't show any flashing. The term would be classed as flashing. If you were using a traditional oil-based paint, that's obviously oil takes longer to dry, your working time with that oil-based paint is a little bit longer. I mean, depending on your conditions and your heat and what you've got around you. But in general, a water-based paint's going to dry off quicker on you, and an oil-based paint's going to have a little bit more open time to work with. But there are paints that are water-based that do seem to have a good open time, and I will mention Benjamin Moore Scuff X and some of the Benjamin Moore paints, because they are one that I do say, again, it's another paint you need to try if you've not tried them. They are a paint that actually is a dream and quite easy to apply. Some of the other paints that, you know, I mentioned Johnson's AquaGuard and things like that. The new version of the AquaGuard is actually quite a nice paint to apply as well. And that seems to have a little bit more open time, and you don't get the brush mark flashing as well. But this is an experimental paint from H&G, so we are doing the tweaking now. It's not a mass market, it's not been rolled out to the mass market yet, so we have time to actually give feedback and say, I think this needs to be altered. What I would say is, it could be the actual pigment being a dark anthracite colour has got something to do with how that paint dries off. I don't know. I'm not a paint chemist. I just did my GCSEs and then went on to painting college to get my City and Guilds. I'm not clever enough with chemistry to know what goes into the paints that makes things alter drying times or open times and things like that. But on the whole, the application of that, it's not a bad paint to apply. It is quite an easy paint to apply. I'm looking at it very objectively because this is an objective video to look at a paint that's here. As it's drying off, it seems to be flowing out onto the panels where the brush marks are. I'm hoping that is going to dry off quite nicely and not leave tram lines or anything like that. The Hanford Green paints don't seem to be like that. Some paints you do find that it looks a bit ropey and thick as it's applied. This, I don't think this is going to be like that. Opacity wise, clearly we're a dark colour and 3 coats. I should expect it to cover quite nicely. I did mention if you were using a roller and was looking up here, I'll just pick up one of these. Everything's going to fall. If you are using something like a Hamilton, another very good, oh, why am I dropping? No, nice microfiber roller. If you are using something like this, you would probably get it on quick enough that you won't notice anything of dried edges, wet edges drying off on you, and open times won't be really affecting you. I know some people are going to say, let me pull this back, some people are going to probably say, what about adding a paint conditioner to it? I'm a very bit reluctant to start adding water to things and paint conditioners into paints unless you actually know and you've tried that paint out to know what it's like on the substrate that you're actually applying it to. Now, I've got my all-purpose primer here that I've used on a previous job not that long ago, and I knew I wanted to keep that open time going a little bit longer, and I did put a little bit of Flow and Bond from Smith and Roger Flow and Bond into that, just to help the open time for the doors that I was doing. I'd got a lot of doors to do and I didn't want it drying off onto me. We're in a customer's house, so there was a little bit more heat than I'd really like when I'm starting to paint. So just be a bit mindful if you are adding any water-based paint conditioners to your paints, whether it's needed or not. Please try it first, have a bit of board to try your paint out. But paint conditioners are a good thing, they're a bad thing depending. It's subjective really. On the whole, Hanford Green paint's really good, and I've never really had a problem with application. But if you are using something like a darker colour that could be quite critical when you are joining up and blending, it might be something to consider to put a bit of paint conditioner in there. But this is an experimental paint. This is something Martin might tweak before it goes to mass market, and he'll say, Phil, we've addressed all the problems that I've picked up on. But I don't want to say it like a problem as in it's a major problem. It's not. You would probably say to me, Phil, I've got that on and not had any problems. Brilliant. You're clearly a better painter than what I am. Right. I don't want to waffle. I just want to give you the facts and things about paints. That's why I like to do the talking. I'm going to come back after an hour. I'm going to get the heater on. I'm going to warm the air up to help it dry off. And let's have a look at what that sheen level's like. The lights that I've got, and I'm looking all the way around me. I'm looking at the screen and the camera to actually see. You can see there is a good sheen level off that Satin 50 for this door here. And I'm quite impressed. I've got a feeling that by the time this dries, you will say that's a lovely finish and we don't need it any shinier or any flatter for a satin. But I tell you what, let's give it an hour and a half and we'll have a look at it when it's dry, and we'll run our hand over it as well and see what it feels like. Catch you in a bit. And if by magic the shopkeeper appeared, yes, can you remember that, Mr. Ben? Anyway, kid of the 70s and 80s me. I'm back. I've been a good, easily an hour and a half, probably a little bit more. That is dry. I don't want to do a scratch nail test because as with anything, curing times with paint, even though it says touch dry within an hour to 2 hours, recoat time 4, that sort of thing. You know what? Paints take days to cure. One of the big ones, I'm looking at me cabinet behind. MSP, Bedeck MSP. Can take up to 30 days, and it does say 30 days proper curing time. So I don't want to do scratch tests or anything like that. I'm not doing that sort of testing on this video. What I'm looking at, what am I looking at that you're looking at? Look at that sheen level. What a cracking sheen level that is. So we're ticking a box. I'm happy with that. I do like that. So H&G, you've got a nice product there that's got a nice sheen level that I can say 50%. I'd be happy with that if it was a satin finish that you were producing. So let's have a closer look to it. I can just see a little bit of brush marking. That could be down to the application using the brush. If you've got a roller, you won't be getting that. I would probably say it's acceptable. It's not as heavy brush marked as in, I don't want to say tram lines. It's not tram lining. It's far from tram lining. I can just see some brush marks with the application of what I've done. And if I mention the brush now, do you know that brush washed out? Perfect, a dream. I've noticed with all the Hanford Green paints, with it being that proper acrylic and not a hybrid mix, you do get your tools, brushes, rollers washing out quite easily. That didn't take a lot of warm water, lukewarm water to actually wash out and leave no residue behind. Like that. That bit of a flashing that I was noticing with the blending out that we spoke about, and I kept going on about it, it's the open time, it's the working time, it's whether you can actually keep that wet edge going. Do you know what? I think I'm probably being a bit too critical. I can just see a little bit to it, but I think I can see that because it's more of a dark colour I'm working with. If you were working with lighter colours and particularly whites and you're really light neutrals, you probably won't be seeing anything at all. Dropping it down, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, the sheen level, I'm looking at the screen just there. Sheen level's really, really nice. Colour wise, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but there is a fashion at the moment to go for dark colours, whether it be on your doors or your woodwork, i.e. your frames and your skirting boards, and then having a contrast with a cream or a white on the well, you know what I mean. So if you go for a dark on your frame, you can have a light on your door, or you might be doing a colour drench. Do you know what? Somebody will like it, somebody won't. I don't think that's bad at all. What I will say, bear in mind, if you are using darker colours, they can be prone to showing up things more so than the lighter colours. With this being a satin finish, it's not going to show finger marks or touching, polishing up like you would get with a flat finish, more your eggshell stroke, you know, flat. I'm trying to think, I'm just seeing if I've got anything. Farrow & Ball flat paints, they're the low 1-2% sheen levels. 10%, 15s might just show something when you're working with a darker colour. Just be aware of it. Look with your eyes, not your fingers, as I say to people. But you know, all in all, I don't think that's a bad paint at all. Probably a little bit of a tweak, I'd probably say to Martin, the chemist at H&G, probably put something in it to help it flow out a little bit more. And I might even say, is there a possibility that it could be thickened up a bit. I know I say about paints going on easy and applying paints really nice, and some paints struggle because they are a little bit of a thicker viscosity, but I think when you've got a little bit of a thicker paint, and this is where people argue the case for using oil-based paints, it does hide and disguise a lot of things. With me having this mechanically sanded down, I can still see a little bit of skate marks underneath on the surface. Now, is that because I've either used too coarse a sandpaper, or is it that the paint could just do with having a little bit more thickness, viscosity to it, to level out over anything that you're going over? I'm just putting it out there. I'm asking the question, what do you think? Does a thinner paint show things up underneath more often? Yes, it does, particularly when it's water-based. But there are paints out there, I don't want to mention any names, that do seem to have a little bit of a thicker consistency. They might be a little bit harder to apply, but do you know what? They do flow out and give you an effect that you have actually put a paint on over a surface. If you understand that? Like, your oil-based paints seem to go on a little bit heavier, thicker, but there is a tendency for creeping if you don't use your brush correctly, and you get creeps on things. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah. Likewise, this paint doesn't creep on me. It doesn't run. I know how to put paint on. There are some paints that I've said over the years of testing paints, they have a tendency to creep on you and they run like Zola bud. Over a long period of time, they do start creeping on you on the mouldings. If that's going to catch you out, just be very mindful of making sure that you're not overloading any paints on any edges that could just gather up and start to run. But all in all, not a bad paint. I'm going to say one more time, I'm not sponsored, I'm not endorsing anything, but I would say to you, please look into Hanford Green if you want a little bit better quality paint. The quick drying elements to it, the ease of application, smell, no smell, anything like that. But it's not easy to get hold of. You've got to go through Hanford Green for it, but if you're prepared to actually put the order in and wait the few days that you might be waiting, particularly if you're wanting a mix of paint, you will be, let's say, pleasantly surprised that you have a quality paint for, and I'm going to say, not that much more money than the run-of-the-mill paints that you'll be getting off the shelf elsewhere. I say it again, price of paint to the actual cost of labour on a job is quite small for the private decorator. If you're only needing a 5 litre tin or a 7.5 litres to paint a room out, what's an extra 20, 30, 40 pounds actually onto your material costs if you get in a paint that's really nice and actually saving you time elsewhere? Just food for thought. Please watch the videos at the end, and I'm going to say thank you very much for the people that are still supporting me with the super thanks and buy me a coffee. It is much appreciated. It all goes to fund things, particularly now we've got the new studio underway, and it helps for the channel to progress. So I'll catch you on the next one, and over and out.